rump by side, rump centre, and it should have a little pillow under there, which it has. The only thing missing is the tri-tip. That's that part that wraps up around the knuckle. So that's gone. So they have a D rump. Obviously, it doesn't have that on there because there's a good marker for the tri-tip. When you slice it, you've got a big face and a little face. This is a grain fed.
I like you. So that's it's not long fed, but it's probably 150 day. MB2 chef.
MB2. Alright.
Yeah.
So Marlon scored
F1.
F1 Wagyu. So it's a very nice piece of beef. When we slice this, it's a different shape, right? So if I was going to slice this out, I've got to sort of fan around so I can get the best out of it. So I'm going to have a little bit of an angle on each of the steaks. But what I want to do here is change that a little bit. We're just going to take off some of this tail fat. So that's where the tail runs on the animal, through there. So there's a little bit of fat, especially in a grain-fed animal. You'll find there's a fair bit of fat through here. If it was grass-fed, you would get less of fat through this section.
So what Doug's doing here is very good, right? You know what we try to tell food service chefs is how do we get the most out of each primal and get the best eating quality. So Doug will talk about it later, but the rump cap actually runs different direction the grains than the roast beef that sits underneath it. So what Doug's doing here is getting the very best eating quality out of that cut. When I joined MLA 12 years ago, this was the first lesson I had with Doug. He showed me how to do this. So it's,
we bought him 2 cartons of rumps and said, go and break them down.
And I chefed it. I didn't know but anyway, yeah. So it's a fantastic cut and it's very versatile, Doug, because not only can you use it as a steak, but stir fry, roasting, even braising. You know what I mean? It's dice, yakiniku. You know, I find it one of the most versatile cuts on the carcass. It's got a real beefy flavour too. You know, so because it comes from the hindquarter.
Yeah. You can do. There's not much you can't do. Really, you can even make a schnitzel with it.
Yep.
This part here, you know what the silver side is? This cut, the rump cap, is actually the continuation of the silver side. So your silver side's actually situated there on the animal. So it'd be sitting something like that on the beast as it's hanging up by the hoof. And it's amazing how different this part of the animal eats as a steak as if you were to steak a piece of silver side, because it eats terrible.
Completely different.
It does not eat well at all as a steak. So what I want to do is just take the cap off. So what I'm looking for here is that seam. Take that cap off there. So it's gone from a D rump. Does anybody know what this other piece of meat is here? Now called a roast beef. Yep. Heard of that before? I've left that bit of fat on there for a reason. Some people take it off, but I like to leave it on there because if you talk about rump steak, when you're having a rump steak at a hotel or a restaurant, it's always got fat on it. I've been in restaurants where somebody's cut up roast beef and they've sent out a rump steak and they've gone, that's not right, it's rump. Why isn't it rump steak? Because it's got no fat on it. So it invites a bit of a controversy there, but it's making sure that the front of house understand that it's actually a rump that has been cut up, but it's actually a different, like it is the roast beef, not just a whole rump. And it's actually better for the customer because they're not eating the fat. So use that as an excuse as well. Watching your weight, you know, we're thinking of you, thinking of your health. So here we've got the rump cap. The Brazilian name for it is picanha. I think that sounds a bit nicer than rump cap, doesn't it? You know? So this is what you would generally get if you went to a Brazilian restaurant when they put it on the skewer and they roast it over coal and they come around your plate and they slice bits off it. You know, absolutely beautiful. mouth-watering. This part here, as it sits on the animal, where we slice it, we're cutting with the grain nearly, and it can be a little bit chewier than the other part, because the grain actually runs on a bit of a diagonal as we go around. So if I was to cut this as a steak one way, that way it's going to actually be a little bit sort of chewy. But if I was to turn that sideways, if I was to turn that sideways and cut across the grain, it's going to expose a lot of that marbling. So Australia has roughly, I think about 70% of what we produce is grass-fed beef. About 30% is grain-fed, still in the grain-fed program. Different countries take different types of meat. They either like grass or grain. The US like our grass-fed beef because it's leaner than their beef. And a lot of the European countries and down through Asia, I think they like a little bit more of the grain-fed. But grass-fed has got a different flavour to grain. Grass-fed's actually got a little bit more of a earthier flavour, I think. Grain-fed's sweeter. The animals are fed on grain. They're fed a nutrient-rich diet of different types of grains and different types of grasses as well. Some are fed a bit of both. And the farmers are very good at doing what they do to keep these animals happy, because happy animals always eat better, don't they? So if you look at that, that's a little rump cap steak. Now that'll eat better that way than what it would be if I'd cut it the original way. It's a beautiful piece of meat. It's got a little bit of marbling. It's MB2, this one. Weight that up for you.
So this is the way to then you usually do with the round cap, right? You never cut it on the other side.
You never.
Because I completely thought it was,
You normally would cut it that way. You normally would on the rump, you would.
Okay.
But if you turn it the other way, that improves the eating quality of it so much. Yeah, it's a bit harder to portion it out.
I didn't know. I really didn't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder to portion that out, but you're not going to get equal serves. But the eating, it's all in the eating quality. Okay. What I've got here is what we call pillow, or the little bit of undercut. This is a sweet little piece of meat. You only get two on this off an animal. And that tiny little piece of meat that sits on the underside of the rump. Takes a little bit of work to separate it from the other muscle, but it's well worthwhile doing it. One of the major supermarkets, or one of the major retailers in Sydney, actually sell this as a pillow steak. And they're very popular. A lot of butchers aren't even aware that it exists. There's a little bit of trim. But it's tender, it's juicy. It's actually very similar sort of grain pattern to a tenderloin because it's so fine. Most of that normally would go into chicken. But this is that muscle that sits on the bottom of a piece of rump steak. It's only very small that you get off each slice of rump. That is always tender. I wouldn't probably recommend doing this because you are losing a lot of weight, but it just tidies up the whole of that piece. So that's a lovely piece of meat, nice and tender, really, really, really tasty. Usually. Is it? Oh, okay. Did Calvin give it that name?
No. With some butcher, yeah, they share.
Okay.
Yeah, they pocket.
Oh, yeah, do it. You snuck in there. Oh, right. So here we've got what we call the roast beef. You've still got the rump centre and the rump by side muscle. That line there in the centre there is where that little bit of sinew rumps that's in that first cut of rump. And that separates the two muscles. So what I want to do is to separate those two. So I always find using a bigger muscle when I'm doing this works out a lot better, because that sinew that I'm looking for, I forgot, tends to disappear if it's a smaller one when I get down further. I'm just going to open that up so you can see what I'm looking for. So that's that bit of sinew that runs all the way through that separates those two muscles. And it's just a matter of slicing that up, trim this one up. So we've changed the whole weight profile of the rump, gone from a big steak, for a pub or a club or a big restaurant or a roast, to something we can use in fine dining. So if you think about this piece of meat I'm just preparing at the moment, what does it look like? A bit like something that we've seen before. Like a tenderloin. Looks similar to a tenderloin. It is a little bit similar. It's a little bit different, but it's actually quite tender.
How do you call it? How's it called?
You call this a rump medallion, or
Medallion.
I would. It's the muscle itself is a rump
Medallion.
muscle, but I would call it a rump medallion. You could call it a rump fillet if you wanted to, because there's no bone. You can't call it thigh fillet. But if I slice it,
Yes.
look at that.
Wow. Tenderloin. So good. Damn.
That's a really cool piece of meat, and you can do so much with it. We can carpaccio that, tartare, you can do anything, because it is so lean and it's tender. It's lovely tender. It's actually just a little bit tenderer than this muscle here. Not a lot, just a little bit. This one here, I would remove that bit of silver skin. And this way, I've got a rump steak that I can still got some fat on it when I slice it like that. Or if I was after more of these, I would split that in half, so you could have more of these little minions. You could do a minion for that. Probably do it well. The rump is, I think, the most versatile of all the beef muscles, because there's just so much we can do with it. We can change it from one type of steak to give it a bit more value. This one here we can slice straight up. We can do a schnitzel with this. We can do a thin slice of stir fry, stroganoff. We can take all that fat off as well. It's a matter of talking with your supplier, getting the right product, what you want to do, knowing what your chefs want to create in the cut, understanding what their needs are, and then talking with the suppliers and making sure that they understand what you're looking for. Because there's a lot of different cuts out there you can use, especially with lamb. If it's available, then I'm going to get it in for you. So if we wanted to do this one, I'd just split that in half. Cut it exactly the same way. We can do a nice little steak. I wouldn't use that because that'd go into a stroganoff or stir fry. We can do that. Or we can cut that into lots and do some really good piece. Last one we've got. Anyone seen the
In fact, we can do the stir fry, okay?
yeah, beautiful for stir fry.
Korean barbecue yakiniku.
Yes, yeah. We can portion that out for that as well.
Yakiniku.